The morning my mother stopped speaking to me, she didn't slam a door, she didn't cry, she didn't raise her voice. She just turned around and walked back inside the house, and the screen door closed behind her, quiet as a held breath. And I stood in the driveway with my one bag, and I understood, without anyone having to say a word, that I had just lost my family. I was 22 years old. I had a bag with 3 changes of clothes, $40, and no social security number I knew how to use. And the worst part wasn't the leaving. The worst part was how silent it all was. Nobody in the English world tells you that. They imagine screaming, confrontation, a dramatic goodbye. What actually happens is quieter than anything you have ever heard, and somehow that is so much harder. Before I go any further, my name is Hannah. And this is Hannah the Amish girl. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and this channel is where I finally say the things my community would never allow me to say out loud. If you want to hear the truth about Amish life from someone who actually lived it, please subscribe, like this video, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. It means more to me than you will ever know. Now let me tell you what leaving actually costs, because nobody tells you the real price. I had been planning it for almost a year before I actually did it. That is another thing people don't understand. Leaving the Amish is not a single moment. It is 1,000 small moments where you sit with the thought, turn it over, put it back down, pick it up again. So it is lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering if the questions in your mind make you sinful or just human. It is reading a library book you weren't supposed to have and feeling the world crack open slightly and then having to close it and go milk the cows. I had been baptized at 18. That matters enormously. In the Amish world, baptism is the line. Before baptism, if you leave, it is painful but survivable. Your family grieves. The community notices. But you can still come to Sunday dinner. You are a lost sheep who might still find the flock. After baptism, the rules change completely. When you are baptized, you make a vow before God and the entire church. You promise to uphold the ordnung, to live and die within the community, to submit to the authority of the bishop and the brethren. When you break that vow, guys, you are not just leaving a community, you are breaking a covenant. And the community's response to that is not optional, it is doctrinal. It has a name, Meidung, shunning. I had known about shunning my entire life, the way you know about gravity. You don't think about it constantly, but it shapes everything. It is the community's most serious tool, the last and most total consequence. When someone is placed in the ban, members of the church are forbidden from accepting anything from their hand, eating at the same table, doing business with them, or treating them as they treated them before. It is not cruelty from inside the theology. It is correction. It is meant to bring the wayward member back. It is meant to hurt enough that you return. What nobody tells you is how precisely it works. My father could not take anything from my hand. If I passed him a cup of coffee, he would have to turn away. My mother could not sit at the same table as me if other church members were present. My sisters, who were still unbaptized, were not technically bound by the same rules, but the social pressure on them was enormous. To be seen showing warmth to someone in the ban was to risk your own standing. So they learned to look through me. Not with hatred, with something emptier than that. With the particular blankness of people trying very hard not to feel what they feel. The morning I left, I had told no one. I had arranged, through a woman I had met at the public library, to be picked up at the end of the road at 6 a.m. I woke at 4:30, which was not unusual. I made the fire, which was not unusual. I put on my dress and my cap, which was not unusual. I moved through the house in the dark, doing everything exactly as I always did, and the ordinary was so painful I can still feel it in my chest when I think about it. The smell of that kitchen. The sound of my father's boots on the floor above. The way the light looked through the window before the sun came up. I left a letter on the table. I had written and rewritten it 11 times. In the end, it said almost nothing. It said I loved them. It said I was sorry. It said I could not explain in a way they would accept, but that the questions in my mind had become too large for the life I was living. I said I hoped someday they would understand. I took my bag and I walked out. My mother must have heard me. She appeared at the door in her nightgown, her hair loose, which I had almost never seen. In 22 years, I had almost never seen my mother with her hair down. She looked at me across the yard. I looked at her. I think I said, "Mama." I think that is what I said. And she looked at me for a long moment, and then she turned around and went back inside and the door closed, and that was the last real communication we had for 4 years. I want to stop here and be honest with you about something, because this is where stories like mine get oversimplified. My mother is not a villain. She is not a cruel woman. She is one of the most hardworking, faithful, deeply loving people I have ever known. What she did that morning was not hatred. It was the only response her entire world had given her for this exact situation. To stay would have been to defy her church, her bishop, her understanding of Scripture, her community, and 40 years of her own life lived inside that covenant. I am not asking you to see her as a monster. I am asking you to understand the size of what that silence cost her, too. Because I think it cost her everything. Now, if this story is already opening something in you, if you grew up somewhere where love and obedience were tangled so tightly you couldn't tell them apart, please subscribe and like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that the cost of leaving is real, and so is the life on the other side. The English world, which is what the Amish call everyone outside the community, had no idea what to do with me. I had an 8th grade education on paper. I had never had a bank account. I had never filed taxes. I did not have a driver's license. I had never lived alone, never signed a lease, never been to a grocery store and paid with a card. I knew how to make a quilt from scratch, butcher a hog, bake bread for 300 people, preserve vegetables for the winter, and pray in High German. None of that had a line on a job application. A woman from a local organization that helped plain people leaving their communities found me in those first weeks. Her name was Deborah. She was not Amish, had never been Amish, but she had spent 20 years helping people like me. She sat across a table from me in a small office and asked me what I needed. I could not answer. I did not have the vocabulary for what I needed, because I had never been taught to name my own needs. She waited. She did not fill the silence for me. And finally what came out was, "I need someone to tell me what year I am living in." What I meant was that my education had ended at 14, that I had large gaps in basic knowledge that people around me treated as obviously shared. I had learned things about the world in fragments, from library books I wasn't supposed to read, from conversations I had overheard, from the English customers who bought vegetables at our farm stand. But it was patchwork, uneven, and the most disorienting thing was not what I didn't know. It was not knowing which things I didn't know. My therapist, who I found through Deborah's organization about 6 months after leaving, used a word I had never heard: ambiguous loss. She said it is a specific kind of grief, different from the grief you feel when someone dies, because the person is still there, still alive, still in the same county in some cases, but inaccessible. Present and absent at the same time. She said it can be harder to process than death, because there is no funeral, no acknowledged mourning period, no casseroles from neighbors, no social permission to grieve. You are supposed to be building your new life. People congratulate you on your freedom. And underneath that, you are mourning people who are still breathing, who are standing in a kitchen 8 miles away, who set a table every night with the same number of chairs. My father sent me one letter in the first year. It was 3 sentences. It said he prayed for me every day. It said he hoped I would come to my senses before it was too late. It said the door was always open if I returned on the right terms. I read it until the paper went soft at the folds. I still have it. My youngest sister, Ruth, who was 16 when I left, they found a way to pass messages to me through Deborah's organization for almost 2 years without our parents knowing. Small things. The cow had a calf. Our grandmother's health was declining. She had a boy she liked. ordinary things that were extraordinary to me because they were still her life, and I was being allowed, through a narrow secret crack, to still be a part of it. When our parents found out, the messages stopped. Ruth was not shunned, she hadn't broken any vow, but the weight of the community's disapproval descended on her in other ways. She was watched more carefully, people asked her questions. She was made to feel the cost of contact with me, and contact stopped, and I understood, and it still broke something in me that has not fully healed. My therapist said something I think about almost every day. She said, "They are not choosing the community over you. They are choosing the only reality they have ever known. That is not the same thing, even though it feels the same from where you are standing." I have tried to hold on to that. I have not always managed. If you are somewhere in the middle of your own version of this, if you know what it is to be loved and lost by the same people at the same time, please subscribe and tap the bell, because this channel exists for exactly this reason. You should not have to sit with this alone. The practical rebuilding took years. I earned my GED at 23. I got a driver's license. I opened a bank account. I learned to do things that people around me had done automatically since they were teenagers. Things with computers and phones and forms. And I learned them quietly so no one would know how far behind I was. I became skilled at performing a competence I was still building. That performance was exhausting in a way that is hard to explain. You are grieving and rebuilding simultaneously, and neither process waits for the other. 4 years after I left, my grandmother was dying. She was my mother's mother, and I had been close to her in a way that is difficult to describe. She had been one of the people who made the world make sense when I was small. I wrote to my mother asking if I could come. I did not expect a response. My mother called me from the phone shanty at the edge of their property. She did not say hello. She said, "Come Thursday. Come alone. Come before the others arrive." I drove 3 hours and sat beside my grandmother's bed for 40 minutes, and held her hand, and she looked at me, and in Pennsylvania Dutch she said, "I know why you left. I understand more than you think. I have never told anyone that she said it. I am telling you now." My mother was in the kitchen when I left. She did not come to the door. At the end of the driveway, I stopped and looked back at the house, and I thought, this is the most love and the most impossibility I have ever held in the same moment. And I got in the car. We speak now. My mother and I, not often, not freely. There are entire rooms of our lives we cannot enter together. She does not ask about my work or my home or the person I share my life with. I do not ask her to. What we have found is a narrow channel of conversation, safe and limited, where we can be mother and daughter without the rest of it breaking everything. It is not what I wanted. It is not nothing. Leaving the Amish did not cost me one thing. It cost me layered, ongoing, compounding things that I am still counting. It cost me my first language as a daily language. It cost me the particular smell of that kitchen and the sound of those boots on the floor and the way light came through the window before sunrise. It cost me a version of myself I will never fully know, the woman I might have been if the questions had been smaller, or the world had been larger, or the love had not been so entangled with the rules. But here is what I need you to hear. The leaving also built something. It built the life I am living. It built the words I now have for things I could not name. It built the capacity to sit in front of you and say, your questions are not sins. Your needs are not pride. The silence that was called obedience was not the same as peace. I know the difference now, and that difference is everything. If this story reached something in you, tell me in the comments. Tell me what part stayed with you. Tell me if you have ever paid a price for choosing your own life. And if you want to keep hearing from behind the prayer cap, subscribe to Hannah the Amish Girl and ring that notification bell so every new truth finds its way to you. Until next time, choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.